All right. What's good, everybody? It is Vaughn Edmead and Jelp Shinholster here again. Episode 3. We're trying to be consistent, so we thank y'all for rocking out with us. Let's jump straight in, is what I'm thinking, Jelp. Um, Today, well, let me kind of give a little bit of a I don't know if it's not an introduction, but not a whatever. I'm gonna just jump right into this.
Mhm.
Today I decided to finally launch the website. The website's been up, but in terms of like actually posting something on social media to let people know that the website exists, to allow people to know that there's a website to be engaged with. I finally posted um, a picture of one of my shirts that I've designed for the Good News for the Hood brand. All right. And for those of you who know, if you go to averagefailure.com or if you go to Good News for the Hood, they're both going to take you to the same place right now because they're really kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Later on, they might kind of diverge a little bit, but for right now, I see them as connected, but I'm kind of strictly using Good News for the Hood at the moment as for the apparel side of things, right? And more so the content and the educational side of what we're trying to do here is housed underneath the term average is failure for the most part. So I finally launched it, and it's been a long time coming, or I should say, relaunched it. It's been a long time coming. Matter of fact, if you all can, if you're listening on like iTunes or something like that, you can't see. But if you watch on YouTube, you can see the shirt "Average is Failure." This is one of the original designs that I created years ago. Decided to bring it back. And so it literally came in yesterday, and I'm wearing it today just so that people could kind of see it. And I wanted to just test it out myself, right? But it also happens to be when we're recording this, it happens to be uh, Easter weekend, Passover weekend, whatever it is that you want to call it. And one of my designs actually is called the "Worthy is the Slain Lamb" design. That joint is fire too. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or nothing. The joint is fire, right? And I originally launched that last year, and I'm relaunching it now. And I felt like this was a great weekend to relaunch it. But honestly, all things weren't perfect. I put it out there today, but it's truthfully, if I'm honest, it's not what I like. Oh, you gotta. We got nah. This is real. It's real.
Oh, well,
Family moment.
You know my cardboard with daddy? Get ready? Okay, thank you.
thank you for that.
Nah, you good, man. So, folks, just so you know, we had to, you know, we had to cut some things out. Family moment on Jelp's side. Last week it was a moment on my side, but things happen. Until we get our studio space, which hopefully you all will like the podcast enough that we'll get to a point where we can build out a space where we can reduce interruptions. We just gonna have to keep it real. So I launched today, but it wasn't perfect. um the images, the image quality, how I would have loved to have launched things, as far as the social media presence to make it attractive, is not exactly, it probably isn't anywhere near, truthfully, what I think that it really could be if I was able to do it exactly how I wanted it to, and what I think I have the skill to do. But at the beginning of 2021, I had started this conversation and I was trying to encourage people with the term "let it fly." And I'll probably create a shirt around that eventually as well. And the whole concept was simply about, you know, pushing. Sometimes the only way to do something is to push it out there, even before you're ready, before it's exactly what you would want it to be, but it might be at least good enough to put out there. Sometimes you got to put it out there. So before I even like dive into all of that, before we started today, Jelp was kind of already talking about his launch, with his book, some of the things that he was trying to convey to his son about some things. And so, Jelp, um, why don't you talk about that real quick? Like, you've now had this experience of developing a product and then putting that product out there for the world to engage with. Like, when you think about putting out, like, what were the imperfections? What were the fears, maybe, anything around around launching it that people need to consider as they're seeking to put their work, their art, their craft, whatever it is that they're doing out there?
So one of the first things that I had to make sure that I did personally, and I know we talk about this a lot off, is that I had to put my ego to the side about the perfection piece. Because one of the things is that when you put a product together, it's probably never going to be perfect for the individual who's always critical. So now you have to put together a product that's going to be of quality, that you're willing to put your name behind, and that you feel confident with selling. And the other part is that the beauty about putting a product out is that you can always reproduce a better product later. And guess what? Now you have two products. You have multiple products. So for my book, the first time I launched the book, so I actually got the book from the completed version, or the version that the individuals that I had put it together, 1,000 Storybooks, like in September, like mid-September. And when I got the completed product from them, I was like, man, I still want to make edits. So I go about still making edits, even though they gave me a completed product. And I literally did not launch the book officially or tell people about it in a real way until December. And from September to December, I was tweaking, making edits, changing pictures, changing words over and over again, because I was just trying to strive for this perfect product. I got to the point where I think I told my wife, I was like, ma'am, if I don't do this right now, it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
So let me go on ahead and put it out. And I put out a post on Facebook, kind of letting people know that, you know what, I came up with a book and this is the product. I even let them know, like, kind of, you know, a little bit more about me, but most people kind of know I'm an introvert. So me putting out a product like a book is not something that I would think for myself that I would be able to do.
Same here.
Yeah. So that was kind of like that journey of getting over myself, so that, you know what, I can actually move forward, because I was kind of stuck in a holding pattern of just trying to find perfection in something that would probably never be perfect per se. Because the one thing about it is that the book was written for me and my family, and I wanted to bless other people with it because I thought it would be helpful. But you never know how people are going to receive, you know, what you put out. So to continue to be worried about the other side, you know, that's an ongoing battle. So I had to make sure that I put that out. Once I got to the point where I was like, you know what, this is good enough, I will change it at a different time, but I got to put it out right now.
So and there's an important thing that you brought up with that, because it's not even just about the content of the book, right? And matter of fact, this is something that I really had to realize this week, because this came up with one of my youth. I've also written a book, which, you know, I mentioned before as well. One of the interesting things is how much, even when people haven't read the book, they're inspired sometimes just by the fact that you wrote the book, right? And so sometimes the youth that I work with are simply inspired by the fact that I wrote the book. They ain't even opened the book yet. They just like, yo, I know somebody that wrote a book. And so even as you're just talking, like, that's even standing out to me and reminding me, like, man, I probably need to dive back in and take the book, you know, not even just books, but just take creating and launching things out there more seriously, because even if it doesn't get to where I want it to get to, the few people around me who at least see me putting things out there can be inspired and to go ahead and do whatever it is that they're called to do. And maybe their thing will be the thing that blows up. You know what I'm saying? So man, you're giving me a lot to think about right now. But
Ron, just to kind of cut in real quick,
yeah,
it inspires the youth a lot, but guess what? It's actually the generation before us too.
that yes,
I have
yes,
had so many conversations with individuals that are my mother's
yes,
father's age about
yes.
the book that they wanted to write. And they ask you questions about how you go about doing it and things
Hmm.
of that nature. But a lot of people have, kind of like the dreams deferred. They have those dreams that they never realize. They have product sitting on a computer or written down somewhere,
Hmm.
and they need a little bit of extra inspiration. Because one of the things that I always tell people about is that, you know what, I was honestly inspired by the fact that, you know what, my son was doing something that I didn't see other boys doing, and there weren't books about it. But it was also the individuals that I came in contact throughout life that were writing books as well. And when I saw those books being written, I will buy the book. Like, I'm gonna support you now. If you got something out there, I'm gonna support it. And I brought it home and I showed it to my wife, showed it to my kids, like other people's books. I was like, man, this is something I have to do. Like, I can't sit back and not and have this idea.
Man, Joe, you convicted me right now, bro. Come on, man. Come on, man. You
It's so
convicted the
it's
mess
so
out of me
real.
right now.
Like, there's one guy, his name is Coach JoJo, Kenny Smith. So me and Kenny played basketball at Ed Davis when we were younger. And this is probably when I'm in middle school.
Hmm.
So that's between like 11 and 13 years old. I went to Firestone, one high school. Kenny went to Book, different high school. We really never kept in contact. Kenny played basketball throughout high school and in college, and I think he might have played a little professional basketball, maybe overseas or around, things of that nature. Kenny wrote a book. He has girls, so he wrote a book. And actually he's written 2 books, and his daughter just wrote a book as well too. And she's like, I think 9 years old. His 9-year-old daughter wrote a book as well too. I made it. Me and Kenny connected after I wrote my book, and I sent him a shout out because he inspired me.
Hmm.
On Sunday, this past Sunday, me and him connected at the same place that we used to play basketball with. I signed his books. He was doing a girls basketball training with the girls league that he's doing. So my son, who loves to play basketball, the youngest one, he took off all his clothes and got in there and started playing with the girls, doing the drills and whatnot. But it just shows how, sometimes, even though people drift apart for just reasons unbeknownst to us, just life happens and situations happen. Like, there's some things that always connect people.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things that definitely connected us, like really, being passionate about literacy. And the thing about it is, guess what? I tell people all the time, and I hate to say this because I don't want to discourage people and I don't want people to take it the wrong way. I am not a writer, but that don't mean I can't write a book.
But maybe we even need to challenge that, right? You are a writer, because the only thing that separates the writer from the non-writer is that the writer writes.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? And I think, and now we kind of jumping into, again, imposter syndrome kind of stuff, right? Kind of language. But what I found is that for me, that's some of the things that has frozen me from launching at times in the past. It's like, yo, I'm not this. I'm not I'm not an author, or I'm not a thought leader in this space. So I probably shouldn't speak on it until I have gathered enough knowledge to say that I'm a thought leader in this. So, and the thing is, there was never any criteria that said that you have to be a thought leader in a space to be helpful and to be useful. And that was one of the questions that I started asking myself, is like, okay, I don't have to be the lead person in this area. First and foremost, that's a very hard thing to do, but can I be helpful? Can I be helpful to a few people? My book may not get everywhere, but can it get to a few people and be helpful? Right? Man, I really got to think about that, Joe, for myself. Like, yeah, well, that's a whole other thing, right? Right. We'll do a deep dive on that at a later date. What I want to know from you real quick is, can you talk a little bit about, okay, so we're talking about putting a product together, right? And I'm trying to talk about this in a way that's not necessarily like purely entrepreneurial, because I think
Right.
there are a lot of people who want to put things out there, but who don't care to think about themselves as like entrepreneurs per se, right? And to some extent, I think that's a good thing, because I think too, entrepreneur has become like a sexy term.
Right.
And so entrepreneur has kind of been relegated to everybody out there trying to become rich.
Mm-hmm.
And by all means, I'm not against becoming rich now. All right. Somebody want to donate some money and make me rich. I'm not against it. But I think it can be unhealthy when everybody is trying to pursue riches for riches' sake, right?
Right.
But if you're just somebody who says, hey, I want to just create something as a contribution to the world, to my community, to my family, what have you, um, you might be hesitant on some things, right? Or there might just be some things that you don't know about. So what I want to know from you, Jelp, is like, what does the initial investment look like? Because I don't think that what we're trying to tell people is, yo, put out substandard work. We're not trying to say, yo, you have an idea and just rush the idea, just launch it, let it fly was the phrase that I had last year. I'm not telling you to just let garbage fly, right?
Right.
So what did it look like? Can you walk us through some details about like what did it take to really put a product out?
So the first thing is to actually start to write something down.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I did not know exactly the end product when I started.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that I wanted to write the book. So I wrote it in a way that was very elementary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, preschool. Like it literally was a couple words per page. I had an outline. Once I had an outline of what I wanted, I had to do the thing that I didn't want to do, what I never want to do, which is ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, asking for help was more so of, okay, I need somebody to help tease this out a little bit more so that there's more substance to the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on Fiverr and I connected with some people on Fiverr to kind of take the outline of what I've had and make it into the storyline that I wanted it. So this is just like people who do music.
Mm-hmm.
You might have an idea, but guess what? You might need other people to collab with,
Mm-hmm.
to write, to compose the beat, things of that nature, so that you can have a finished product. And I think that's one thing, as African Americans, Black people, whatever you want to define yourself as in particular, we have to do, people of color, we have to do is learning how to work together with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you know something up front that I was trying to do that wasn't, not to say it wasn't sustainable, but I didn't want to allow my specifics of everything I wanted in line to prevent me from this end goal. I wanted all Black people to be a part of the book, meaning if somebody was going to be helping me, they were going to be Black. If somebody was going to do the illustrations, they were going to be Black. And if somebody was going to be the distributor or the publisher, they were going to be Black.
Yeah.
And I sat back and I thought about it, and that was the road I was heading down. And then I was like, Joe, I think you're trying to put obstacles in your way right now. You are purposely trying to sabotage yourself right now. Not that you don't have a good idea, not that that's not reasonable or feasible, but for the person that you are, for the individual that's the introvert, I think you're putting obstacles in your way. So I had to throw that idea out the way, and I went down the path of, hey, whoever I can get to help me, that's who I'm gonna use. So I went online, found some individuals, and from the time that I actually was serious about writing the book, which was the earlier part of 2021 in March, till the time that the book was kind of like finished product, I can actually publish it, was March to September. And actually it would have been quicker if I didn't use Fiverr for my illustrator in the beginning because I was
Mhm.
being very, very, very frugal. I had a small budget that I was trying to work with,
Uh-huh.
and I went on Fiverr and I found a illustrator that I thought I liked, and that process took maybe a month or two
Yeah.
for me to get the illustrations. And when I got the illustrations, I mean, I showed them to my wife, and I was like, I can't do nothing with this. I cannot put this out. I can't embarrass
That
myself.
I've had some designs come through like that where I literally, the day that I got the design back from the designer, I literally immediately found another designer to start working on the design because yeah.
Yeah, and that was the one of my, I guess, that fork in the road,
Mhm.
because when you put money out for illustrations, which is a
Mhm.
big part of a picture book,
Mhm.
and you don't get what you want
Yeah.
or anything similar, like it was like, okay, yo, I think we might be done.
So Joe, if you don't mind me asking,
Yes,
right? Because I kind of want people to be able to get some. I want us to be able to paint as clear a picture for people as possible.
yes.
What kind of money are we talking? Did
So
you have to
the
invest? Like, what was your financial investment in general overall? What do you think you invested? And if you can break it down by like,
Oh yeah, I can break it down for you.
yeah,
I can break
yeah.
it down for you as much as possible. So initially, for Fiverr, to kind of get somebody to help me with filling out the storyline, that cost me about $100.
Mhm.
Um, I also went, because what I did was, once I got the storyline, the manuscript together,
Mhm.
I actually send it out to publishers.
Okay.
Like I send it out to the traditional publishers and things of that nature. And actually, when I sent it out to the publishers, everybody wanted me to actually publish the book through them, because
Mm,
it was a different story. It was a niche type story.
mm.
Thing about it was they wanted like $5,000, $6,000. They only wanted to give me a small percentage of the royalties. So I was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to go down this route. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do the self-publishing, but I didn't know anything about self-publishing.
Mhm.
So it's this place called the Self-Publishing School. They offer you a membership, but you pay a yearly membership fee for it.
Mhm.
And that was probably the one thing, and not to say that they don't help, because I think they have a great company, but that was probably the one thing I probably should not have done.
Really?
Yes, should not have done that, because I believe that I could have got everything I needed, the information that they gave me, for a better price.
What was the what are they charging?
They were charging $4,000. And what they were doing, they were charging you for the information of how to go about writing a book. The
Yeah.
problem was I already had the book written.
Mm.
So, but they did have some other information
Uh,
about how to set up a launch team, how to go about, getting an
yeah.
audience, things of that nature. So I still got the information. I still
Uh-huh.
have the information. And actually, I plan on giving the information to some other people because I think it'd be useful for other
I
people.
might need to check it out. But I would even say this, Joe. This is one of the things that I really feel like I'm realizing as someone who has, been out there and done motivational speaking, as somebody who has um, started a shirt brand before, still trying to keep that thing alive,
Mhm.
as somebody who has had all types of projects, right? Podcasts, whatever. I've sat and learned, whether it be through paid channels or whether it's been through other types of channels. I've been through so much learning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And matter of fact, I was actually thinking of doing a whole episode, I think, about this one day, right? I've done so much learning. And that's when I think recently, maybe within the last year, is when I've realized, maybe even just like the past few months, is when I've really settled on it's not it's not so much about learning from all of these people, because everybody has a learning thing out there that they want you to buy or pay for, that they're like, yo, we'll show you how to do this, we'll show you how to launch this type of brand or what have you, right? But what I found is that, yo, half of what they're gonna say, because I've gone through so many courses over the past 10 years, I know everything they're going to say already. I think the difference is that information is good, but then there has to become this time where you're like, yo, I have to let my story breathe. And that's why that's become another one I think of, like, are the principles for the Average is Failure, Good News for the Hood brand is like, you're these people are often giving you what they learned through their story.
Right.
And if you try to walk that same exact path, like, is you're not in their same exact context for it to work exactly the same. So that's why I realized, like, yo, you kind of just gotta jump out there and start launching stuff so that you can bump up your head against man. So many things are actually tying together right now for me, right? I feel like I launched this other idea that came to me was kind of like, yo, you got to let it fly. You got to let your story breathe. But you also, and I think Dr. Esau McCauley is the one that said this is, yo, you got to go out there and waste time, right? Because wasting time with this thing that you're trying to do is the only way that you're going to understand what works and why it works, because you understand more about why what you're trying to do, how to make it work, when you bumped your head into the doing it wrong. Now, we're not talking about certain things. I'm not talking about, you don't need to go bump your head up against drugs, right? To understand why you don't need, like, nah, we're not talking about that. Certain things you do need to kind of just learn from what you've seen already from others, right? But then there's other things where it's like, yo, if you don't go out there and bump your head up against doing it the wrong way a couple of times to also understand why the wrong way is the wrong way, you will never truly know why the right way is also the right way.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And it's helpful for you to understand, like, people who have mastered their craft. Matter of fact, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, man, I might need to come up with some tiers, right? The master of their craft is the person who's able to do what they do very well. But the PhD level person is the person who is able to tell you, yo, this is how you do this particular thing well, but this is also why you stay away from these other avenues, right? Because I can tell you what's right about the right way and what's wrong about the wrong ways, which can be important, because the person who can only tell you about the right way, at some point they might be like, well, let me steer off into this direction. And it's like, nah, the PhD person can say, I already know it's down that direction. Ain't no need to go down. There's no need for you to go down that direction anymore, because I already understand what's down that direction.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so they are like the sage, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're like the guru. And I think that there's something to that. I haven't fully fleshed it out yet, but there's something to that. But yeah, man, I kind of took us down another rabbit hole a bit, but yeah. So bringing it back, bringing it back. I don't even know if I can get us back exactly to where we were, right? But I do know that I had actually about the investment. So you talked about a $4,000 investment.
4,000, but that ain't it. That's not it.
Okay, go ahead.
That's just for the information so that you can go through the process of putting the book together. You still have to get the illustrations done for the book. And then there's also the editing of the book. There's the layout. There's the formatting of the words, things of that nature. So what I did was I looked online. And actually, no, this is actually what I got from my $4,000. Of course, they had a lot of resources so that you can find individuals and companies that could actually help you produce your book. And one of them was 1000storybooks.com.
Okay.
And what 1000storybooks.com is, they take your manuscript and they have there's pretty much like a project manager that they have over your book. And that's the individual that you communicate with through email. They actually send your book to an editor. The editor makes edits. They send it back to you. You get to pick and choose what edits you like and you don't. From then they actually find an illustrator for you. They do sketches first. After you approve of the sketches, then they color in the sketches. After you have the sketches and the manuscript complete, then they actually merge them together and putting the pages and the words on the page for you.
Mhm.
So they help with text, font, all that stuff. They actually help you with a hardback and a paperback book cover. And all of that came out for me because I wanted 2-page landscape type of photos. That came out to $1,500
Mm.
for that. And that was actually my best investment. I
Okay.
will say that for sure. That was the best investment that I made. I believe that, it was within a reasonable budget because I
Mhm.
remember. So before I went to them, I went to Fiverr. I told you guys about that. I paid $300 for some illustrations that were just trash.
Uh-huh.
Not gonna lie to you, straight up trash.
Man.
And then I went to 1,000 Storybooks. So
Mhm.
I mean, I was in pretty deep on the financial end when it
Mhm.
came to the book. And that pretty much was the total amount, like between the 4,000, the 1,500, the 300, and the 100. You add all that up, you're a little over $5,000,
Mhm.
probably close to getting closer to
Mhm.
$6,000 for the investment in the book. Now
Yeah.
from there, they gave me some instructions on how to actually publish the book.
Mhm.
So they told me to go to ingramspark.com to do the hardback version of the book. And then they told me to go to Amazon to do the actual paperback version of the book.
Mhm.
They also gave me an e-copy of the book as well too. So
Mhm.
I was able to upload that to Amazon so you can get it on Kindle as well too. The beauty about Amazon is anything that you publish on Amazon, you don't pay anything for it.
Mhm.
So you upload it onto Amazon. They have a whole system on the back end to check the book, and then once it's actually published, so that other individuals can purchase it on Amazon, you can buy your own authored copies for the cost to print the book. So let's say for my book, the first edition of my book is, I think it is right now on Amazon for $14. For me to purchase the book as an author's copy, I pay like $4
Right.
for the book. And then it allows me to purchase the book and then sell it on my own. But then you can also just buy it directly on Amazon if you want to.
Does Amazon do Amazon only does paperback? They don't do
So Amazon is working on doing hardbacks, but it's only certain sizes. So
okay,
my
that makes
book
sense.
is 8.5 by 8.5,
Mhm.
and they don't have a hardback for that size right now.
Gotcha.
So that's why I had to go with Ingram Spark.
Okay. No, that's good information because I'm even learning, and I hope that the individuals who are listening to this, we're kind of getting a little technical at the moment. But I think, one of the things that I did wish was that sometimes when I was maybe listening to, let's say, a podcast or somebody who was inspiring me, could also give me some of the technical insights. I think that's why I said, like, I really like what Earn Your Leisure is doing with their podcast, because they're not just inspiring you to be good with money, right? They're getting you into the technicalities of, like, if you want to make these moves, this is what needs to be done in order to make those moves. And that's what I'm hoping that we're able to kind of give people those types of tools on this as well.
I want to tell people one thing about even publishing a book. One of the things that you will learn is everybody want to say, okay, how can I get my book in Barnes and Noble, and how can I get it in like a Walmart on the stand? The only way to get your book on the stand in a Barnes and Noble, Walmart, any of those type of places is you have to go through a traditional publisher.
Mm.
As a self-publisher, what will happen is you will have possibly an opportunity to be on their online platform, but you won't be able to be actually in stores. And the way to do the online platform is going through Amazon and Ingram Spark. If you publish this through there, what happens is they give you an option for expanded distribution, which allows those stores to pick up your book online and sell it. You still get your same royalty amount, but it will possibly be picked up on Walmart, Target, Barnes and Nobles, and a lot of other random bookstores also have the opportunity as well, because they get like a book list and they get to choose what books they want to come into their stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, for those of you who might have a little author, in your spirit, you just got some good game. And maybe we'll even do, as we grow, Jelp, and especially as we see like who our audience develops to be, maybe we'll do like a full out, like, hey, these are different routes that you can take to publishing a book. These are different routes that you can take to launch this kind of thing. But I'll talk a little bit, I guess, about even some of the process with these shirts, right? And it was Jelp that really brought me back. I had done this 10 years ago, y'all, where I used more so of a drop shipping kind of method, where instead of me holding product, a company behind the scenes kind of fulfills the product on the back end and ships it out or what have you. And I'm saying this is important when we talk about letting things fly, right? When we're talking about getting your work and your art out there. I think the thing we have to ask ourselves is, what's the most important thing that I'm trying to get out of this? For Average is Failure, for Good News for the Hood, it's all about a message. The message leads. I think I'm really finally accepting that, right? The message is what leads. And so for so long, I had been trying to get the fashion to lead, get a social media presence to lead, all that kind of stuff. No, the message leads. So one of the things that happened is I had to drop. Now I'm gonna admit, this is 10 years ago. The drop shipping stuff it was a little corny. It was a little cheesy. It was, or let me say, it was a little limited. Okay, it was limited. But I still was able to get some stuff going with it, and people were buying, right, with very little hassle. Me, though, seeing what other people, and again, looking, grass is always green on the other side. I'm looking at other people. They're like, yo, well, if you do it yourself, if you can buy the blank shirts yourself, get them for a cheaper price. And then, you take them somewhere, get them printed for a cheaper price, then you can sell them yourself or what have you. And then that way you can make a larger profit. Okay. Now that's all well and good. Here's the problem that I ran into and that I hadn't calculated up front. Usually when you're buying blanks, they're going to want you to buy a certain amount up front, right? Whether or not you're going to be able to sell those or not, they want you to buy a certain amount up front. That means now that you also, once you get those things, you're going to have the time to go travel to a shirt printer somewhere and let them print the shirt, unless you're able to do it yourself. But that's still at least your own time, right? They're printing. Then you're going to have to ship it out yourself. You're also going to have to figure out, what if people from overseas want to start buying your stuff, right? Have you thought about what that's going to cost? And do you have the website that's able to handle calculating the different shipping costs that you're going to need to meet or what have you? So I transitioned to doing that without really considering all those things because it looked sexier to me, right? And I was still, even up to last year, I had been trying to do that. It's not until Jelp really talked some sense into me that it really did free me up. Yes, do I want to eventually get to a point where I can get back to having more control over, all the various aspects, quality control, and even keeping a bigger profit? Yes, absolutely, that's a goal. But guess what? Pursuing that was actually keeping me from launching any kind of product in the first place with the ability to be sustainable. Right. So I know I don't have time to talk numbers and all that kind of stuff today. But yes, there's some investment that goes into a lot of this. And as a matter of fact, when I wrote my book, Jelp, I can speak off the top of my head from that point. I remember my initial investment, and this was with going through a small publisher, not even no publisher that anybody would know. This is a small local publisher. That initial investment though was $4,000. right?
Yeah.
For me as well. So these things cost, these things have investment. I think there are ways that I probably could get around that investment now. Because again, I was doing it that way again because, well, at the time, well, I ain't even gonna get into all that because I'm gonna prolong this more than it needs to be prolonged. But I think the conversation that we were having with today, I think we actually dropped a lot of gems in there that didn't even have to do with like the overarching theme. But today we're living in a society where there is the ability for you to put your craft, your art, your work, your thoughts, your creativity, out there to be engaged with by the world and by your community, for a reasonable price in some way, shape, or form, without it having to be perfect.
Right.
Right. I guess what we're trying to say is, don't let perfection get in the way.
Definitely.
Maybe that's the title of this episode.
Don't let it.
Right. Average is failure. Right. Again, I'll tie it into the title of the show. Sometimes the best thing that you could do is put out a product that you know is not perfect. Average is failure is not about perfection. All right. Average is failure is about meeting the standard, okay, of what's good enough to put out there, right? I was proud of this shirt from when I got this sample from the drop shipping company, right? Right. So I'm like, okay, this is good enough to put out. Guess what? There's some shirts that I got back, some designs where I was like, nah, even though they made the shirt and I could put this out there to sell, I was like, nah, the way it looks, I wouldn't be proud to sell that. So I'm not saying to let garbage fly, right? But there's some stuff that is good enough. It's not perfect, but you're like, yo, it's good enough that I would wear this in public and be comfortable wearing it. If that's the case, stop holding on to it for so long and put it out there, right? You created a movie or something like that. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. You feel like you would sit down and watch it, put it out there and see if other people would sit down and watch it,
But one of the things
and I'll wrap it up with that. Joe, you can close us out, Joe.
One of the things that is definitely important about putting it out, me and my wife, we always say this term, give something for God to bless. And the one thing about putting out the book initially was that, I didn't think it was, just stellar book. It didn't have no woos and ahs and wows to it, but it was my book. The blessing was that once I put it out and once I started pushing it out to other people, I started to get feedback and I started to talk to other authors. And one of the other authors was like, and she's from Canada, lady from Canada. And she was like, the kids love the book. But one of the things that, where they said it was kind of a little wordy. And I was like, I know it was very wordy. And I knew from just some research that, what children's books are supposed to be between like 800 at the most 900 words, picture books. And mine was close to 1200. And she was like, if you wouldn't mind, send me your manuscript and I'll go through it and work with you on to reducing the words so that it's under, that 800 to 900 word mark and whatnot. Put my equal to the side, send her the manuscript. She did some tweaks to it. Now I got a second edition of the book, which is under 900 words. Same pictures, same illustrations. The only difference is that it's more geared towards that real picture book audience. I was also able to increase the font size of the word, so it's a little bigger. And guess what? Now I got 2 products instead of 1 product. The other thing that came off of it was, and again, giving God something to bless. I was like, you know what? Let me do a Spanish version of the book.
Right. You did tell me about that.
Told you. Oh, I got the Spanish version. It was kind of interesting. So the Spanish version actually was completed about a couple weeks ago, but the actual book came to my house while I was in Ohio.
Uh-huh.
So I'm in Ohio. My wife is here. She was like, Joe, you got a package. And I was like, open it up, and she was like, oh, it's the Spanish version of the book.
That's what's up.
And luckily my wife knows how to speak Spanish. You know how to read and
Okay.
speak Spanish. And so she started reading the Spanish version of the book to me over the phone. And she's just laughing while she's reading the book. And she was like, oh, this is the best version of the book and whatnot.
Wow.
But it also brings in another stream of revenue and it connects with another audience as well. The last thing that I did for this book recently was I made a coloring book, an activity book that goes right along with the book.
Big.
So no matter if you got the first edition or the second edition, it goes with the book. Guess what? The coloring book sells more than the book because guess what happens? You might buy one book for 2 kids, but you got to buy 2 coloring books.
Yeah.
So giving guys something to bless, that initial investment actually allowed me to have different products that now I can actually, sell, and it blesses other people as well.
Yeah. And so again, man, you put something out there and more ideas came from it, right? When Apple and these guys put their products out there, it's the users interacting with it that allows the bugs that are in it to come up, or it allows them to say, we could do this better over here in the next version because we see people are using it like this, but they're asking for this. Something as simple as, hey, Apple, when on the iPhone, they moved the search box from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, closer to where people's thumb is, right? Yo, it's a simple thing, but it makes people's life a lot easier. But you wouldn't even think about some of that stuff unless people had started using it, right? So anyway, y'all, we hope that something in here you all found helpful that you can take run with whatever you got going on in your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily even be creating something. It's just other things that you're trying to do. It go out there, do it. It could even be you just trying to get in shape. Go out there, get in shape. It might not be until you go out there that you start figuring out like, I started working on this, but maybe I really need to be working on this other part of my body first, So with that said, Average is Failure. Again, you can find us both on social media. Joe, can they find you again?
You can find me at JELPSHINHOLSTER on Instagram. And if you look at my name, Joe Shinholster, on Facebook, I'm there as well.
You can find me at Instagram. Word is Vaughn, VAUGHN. You can find just kind of like everything that the project stuff that I think we're trying to do. Average is Failure on Instagram. You can find Good News for the Hood is where the apparel stuff is going to be housed. If you want to see some of the stuff over there. Yeah, we're figuring a lot of stuff out. Rock with us as we go along this journey, y'all. Peace.
Peace.